In February last year, just days into Joe Biden's presidency, the new administration made it clear it would be doing things differently.
Africa is a priority for the Biden administration. We are committed to engaging our African partners early and often.
The former president's wife and daughter made visits to several African countries. Donald Trump himself did not. Indeed, White House insiders claimed that he disparagingly described the continent as containing S-hole countries. It was a marked change from President Obama, who visited multiple African nations during 4 trips during his presidency. President Biden is yet to visit the continent, but the US now appears on an Africa offensive. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has made 3 trips to the continent since November. His most recent included a visit to South Africa, where he released Washington's long-promised strategy towards sub-Saharan Africa. Tony Carroll has spent much of his career focusing on Southern Africa.
I think it's an important moment for us to reestablish a good collaborative relationship with South Africa at the highest level. I think it's been absent for a number of years, not to go dwell in the past, but I think there's been a gap between our presidents, and I think now is an opportunity to reboot that. Things we will agree on, things we will disagree on, but I think it's important that we have a personal relationship between the heads of state.
The African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, now in its 22nd year, gives dozens of countries duty-free access to the US market. And the Biden administration is delivering more COVID-19 vaccines to Africa, even though vast vaccine inequality still exists between the US and the continent. But as much as the Biden administration is looking for a reset, or at the very least a re-upping of relations with South Africa, there remains a significant bone of contention: the war in Ukraine. Washington had hoped President Ramaphosa would join Western condemnation and sanctions against Russia, rather than maintaining a position of neutrality. And Washington has worried that another superpower, China, is only extending its influence in Africa, with billions of dollars of investment and aid. But some experts say the US needs to be interested in Africa for Africa's sake, not as a way to simply counter Beijing.
Sometimes we have the feeling that Africa is interesting from a Washington point of view, is interesting only when we talk about Russia or China. The challenge and also the opportunity is how can the US change their own policy to Africa. That's the best answer to provide to Chinese people or Chinese investors. Just improve your own policy and you will see you will have no competitor on the African continent.
Washington may be hoping to re-energize relations with Pretoria at this week's meeting, but it may not be until Biden's African Leaders Summit in December when the US gets a chance to revitalize its relationship with the whole African continent. Nick Harper, SABC News, Washington.